Each man in his fright had saddled the first horse that came to hand, and ridden off on it. And the one that still stayed there was the Prince's own black charger. He had had no mind to be saddled in haste by a stranger, and had turned and bitten the stranger who had attempted it. So he was there alone. Now, the little kitchen-maid lifted the Prince's gold-broidered saddle from its perch, and the weight of it was such that she could not have carried it but for the heavy heart she bore because of her love to the Prince and his danger, and that made all else seem light. She put the saddle on the charger and the jewelled bridle, and he neighed with pleasure, for he understood, being a horse who could see as far into a stone wall as most people. And when he was saddled he knelt for her to mount, and then up and away like the wind, and she had no need to guide him with the reins, for he found the way and kept it. He galloped steadily on, and the sun went down, and the night grew dark, and he went on, and on, and on without stumble or pause, till at moonrise he halted before the house of the Great White Rat. Then, as the Real Kitchen-maid sprang down, the Great White Rat came out from his house and spoke. "You've come for it, then?" "For what?" "The magic cat's eye. I've guarded it some thousands of years. I knew there would be a use for it at last. He may be saved yet, if some one should love him well enough to die for him." "I do that," said the little kitchen-maid, and took the cat's eye in her hands. "Swallow it," said the White Rat, "and you'll turn into a mouse." The little maid swallowed it at once, and behold, she was a little mouse. "What am I to do?" she asked. "I can't tell you," said the Great White Rat, "but Love will tell you." So the little kitchen-maid, in the form of the mouse, ran up one of the horse's legs, and held tight on to the saddle with all her little claws. And as the great horse galloped back towards the palace in the moonlight, she thought and thought, and at last she said to herself, "The witch is in cat's shape, and she must have cat nature, so she will run after a mouse. She will run after me, and if I can lead her to a running stream she will leap across it, and then she will have to take her own shape. That must be what the Great White Rat meant me to do. And if the cat catches me, well, at least if I can't save my Prince, I can die for him." And the thought warmed her heart as the great horse thundered on through the dawn light. When at last, creeping softly on little noiseless feet, the mouse kitchen-maid re-entered the great hall, she saw that she was only just in time. For the black cat was purring and looking back at the Prince as she walked, waving her black tail towards the further door of the hall, and the Prince, more bewitched than ever, was slowly following her. Then the Real Kitchen-maid mouse uttered a squeak and rushed across the porphyry floor, and the black cat, true to its cat nature, left purring at the Prince, and sprang after the mouse, and the mouse, at its best speed, made for the garden, where ran the stream that fed the marble basins where the royal goldfish lived. The Prince understood nothing, save that the enchanting black furry creature was leaving him, and in an instant he was alone. He followed to the door, and saw the cat springing along the passage down the stairs. He followed fast, then along another passage that passed the foot of the back stairs, and he saw that the back stairs were like a waterfall. Water was running down in a torrent, and meandering away down the brick passage, and out into the faint new sunshine. When the mouse saw this stream, she thought, "I'm saved." She never thought of wondering how a stream came to be running down the back stairs of the palace. When she came to think of it afterwards, she always believed that the Great White Rat had managed it somehow. She never knew that it was really a great flood from the royal bathroom, where the royal housemaid, in her eagerness to run away from the witch, had left all the royal bath taps full on. The mouse bounded across the stream. The cat saw the danger, but she could not stop herself. She too crossed the stream, and as she crossed it she turned into the wicked fairy Malevola, cobwebs and snakes and newts and batwings and all. The Prince put his hand to his head like one awakening from sleep, and the horrible fairy vanished suddenly and for ever. Then the mouse ran trembling to the Prince, and in its thin little mouse's voice told him all. "My love and my lady," he said, holding the mouse against his cheek, "I will marry you now. That will carry out the wicked fairy's prophecy. Then we will go back to the Great White Rat, and you shall be changed into a princess." So the Prince rang the church bells till all the people came out of their holes where they had been hiding, to see the strange spectacle of a prince married to a mouse. And directly they were married they set off on the black charger, and when they reached the Great White Rat they told their tale. "And now," said the Prince joyously, "if you will change her into a lady again, we will go home at once, and begin living happily ever after." The Great White Rat looked at them gravely. "It's impossible," he said. "I am sorry, but the effects of the magic cat's eye are permanent. Once a mouse, always a mouse, if you get moused by the magic cat's eye." The Prince and the mouse looked sadly at each other. This was the last thing they had expected. The Great White Rat looked at them earnestly. Then he said, "If it would be of any use to you, I've got another magic cat's eye." He held it out. The Prince took it gladly. Kingdom and the life of a king were nothing to him compared with the love and happiness of a real kitchen maid disguised as a mouse. He put the stone to his lips. "You know what'll happen if you do," said the Great White Rat. "I shall change into a mouse and live happy ever after," said the Prince gaily. "Perhaps," said the Great White Rat. "Nothing is impossible if people love each other enough." "You mustn't," cried the mouse, trying to get between his lips and the cat's eye. "My dear little real kitchen maid," said the Prince tenderly, "you have saved my life, and you are my life. I would rather be a mouse with you than a king without you." And with that he swallowed the cat's eye, and two small mice stood side by side before the Great White Rat. Very kindly he looked at them. Then he pulled a hair from his left whisker, and laid it across their little brown backs. And on the instant there stood up a prince and a princess, and at their feet lay the little empty mouse skins. "It's lucky for you," said the Great White Rat, "that you chose to swallow the cat's eye, because people who have been moused by that means can never be unmoused, except in pairs. Nothing is impossible if people only love each other enough." So the Prince and his bride returned to the palace, and lived happy ever after. They were as happy as if they had been mice, which, in a country where there are no cats, is saying a good deal. Of course, the Prince is still afraid of cats. But the curious thing is that now his wife is afraid of them too. Perhaps she learnt that lesson when she was a mouse for his sake. He, when he was a mouse for hers, learned this lesson, which is also the moral of this story. Nothing is impossible if people only love each other enough. End of The Prince, Two Mice, and Some Kitchen Maids.